Hey everyone, welcome to episode 49 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Andrew Chesnutt. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. We have a little bit of a delay, so there might be like a little bit of a quarter of a second between, when I ask you questions and you're responsible. That's okay. We'll get through it. For those of you that don't know, Andrew is the founder of Nickel City Learning Solutions, and they specialize on creating virtual trainings and online courses for corporations, companies, and for anybody that needs them, pretty much. But before we get into that, we're gonna go into how they go about creating the courses, what are the steps that they follow to create these courses, how they structure them, and how do they get them out there. So if some of you are thinking about starting and creating your first course and you're starting out, he'll definitely give you some tips on how to do that. And if you're a company that needs, somebody to come in and create all the virtual training for you, especially with everything that's going on, then Andrew is your guy for sure, with Nickel City. So before we go into all of that, Andrew, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background? Were you always an entrepreneur, or did you have the corporate jobs and then at one point you decided to go on your own?
Definitely did my time in corporate. I was in corporate for a number of years, and it was one of those situations where I did it because it was a job. It was a good job. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I have some really good experiences with that. I learned a lot of things about kind of how things work and how companies should work. And it was a good experience for me. But about 5 years ago, I was laid off from a job. It had been a longer term job. I'd been there for about 7 years and had gotten to the point where I think it was 300 resumes I had put out and had 4 interviews. And it was a moment when I realized the universe was telling me I probably needed to go in another direction. And so I decided to start my company. I said, I have 3 months. I have 3 months from today to find enough clients to at least pay my bills. And that's my goal. That's what I need to do. And I did. And so 5 years later, I'm still in business. I'm still loving what I'm doing. While the corporate world taught me a lot, I really don't want to go back. I love being an entrepreneur. I love being on my own. I love being able to do the cool stuff that I wasn't able to do in the corporate world. There's a lot of in the corporate world, they want things in a very specific format. They want things done in a specific way. And I'm that kid that likes to color outside the lines. And so
I did time in corporate between, companies and stuff. And growing up as a kid, I didn't always, I always had side hustles, but I did work for big corporations, growing up. So I feel your pain there about how things have to be a certain way. And that's why there's a lot of red tape. But at the same time, I compare myself to some of my colleagues that never had a corporate job. And then, they always did it on their own. And they struggle with a lot of stuff because they didn't learn that structure that corporate America teaches you in a way. Yes, corporate America is a pain in the ass. Yeah. But if you can learn, there's a reason why they have those systems and processes set in place so things don't get out of hand and anything can be replicated a million times over and you know what you're going to get. Which, when you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're starting out and you set those systems and processes in place from the beginning, it's going to help you so much more. Another thing that I learned from corporate customer service, I own a couple of brands online, and the reason why some of mine surpass some of my competitors is because I offer excellent customer service from the beginning, from day one. And some of the people that came up at the same time with me, they had none of that background, so they didn't know how important customer service was. And that's what left them behind. That's what built Amazon in a way, So as much as I will never go back to corporate America, I did learn things from it that I still apply to this day. Yeah. So, which I'm sure helps with you too. So the other question is, you said you said you had 3 months to get your first clients. So I'm hardcore into sales. My first business was brick and mortar. I had to knock on doors, cold call, and the whole 9 yards. So I'm curious to see, how did you get your first set of clients?
I'm going to be honest. The first clients came from Upwork, which
really,
is yeah. And actually, one of them is still my client to this day.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So I happen to be kind of lucky, And at first, it was, I was in this mindset of just get sales, just whatever I have to do to make this work. And then I've gotten to the point now where I start to set kind of some of the specifics about how it works, and I can take the clients I want. But in those first couple of years, I should say, it was just about kind of whatever I can to make sure that I can keep food on the table, right? So yeah, Upwork was actually reasonably good to me. I wouldn't say it was perfect. I don't really go on that platform very much anymore, just because I've sort of evolved, as far as my what I want in a client and my specific niches. At that point, my niche was anything, whatever I can get. So now I'm a little bit more targeted. My target audience doesn't really use Upwork very much, but yeah, so it did pretty well for me, and now it's mostly into partly cold calling. I've got a VA who does sales for me as well, but for me, it's things like webinars.
Guys, make sure you check that out when you get a chance after you watch this or listen to this whole thing, and check it out. So. All right, so Upwork, that's very interesting. I actually, I'm still on Upwork on there because I was doing a case study for this channel on how long it would take me to break 6 figures, and I did it. And I still have a couple clients from there as well, but it's not what my ideal clients are for sure. But it's, anybody can do it. And I'm going to release a video where it explains the whole thing, how I did it. And if you play your cards right with Upwork, you can definitely make some serious bank on there. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, with Upwork, you're not going to get the dream clients. Most of your dream clients are not going to be there for sure. But if you're building your portfolio and you know what you're doing and you know how to play the game in order to be able to charge more and more and more as you move up, you can definitely make a good living depending on what I know somebody, I've had him on the podcast, Jeff, I can't pronounce his last name, Manabak or something like that. It's like episode 2 or 3. He started on Upwork as well, doing graphic design. And now his company employs over 250 graphic designers. So, he started the same way. So if you're starting out, man, that's one way to go for sure. So
you got a couple, and that's one thing I like the most is the steady work. Is that if you need work, you will probably find it. It may not be the highest paying work. It's decent. I mean, you can, if you have somebody on there that's grossly undervaluing you, then you can always just say, no, thanks, I'll move on to somebody else. And you're not going to make, get rich on it, but at least steady. And it kept me going and food on the table for the first couple of years or so.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the advantage that we have nowadays, that we have digital platforms like that where you can, get your first couple clients, build your portfolio, and then go from there. So once you were, you realize it's like, all right, it's time to move on from Upwork and go after my dream clients. What was the step? How did you go about that? You built case studies, I'm assuming, and then moved on that, started reaching out?
Yep, and started targeting. So that's actually the process I'm in right now, is the building. So, Upwork's been good. It's been all right. But for this year, this has been my big goal, is kind of moving beyond that. So I've got some other clients that I've had I partnered with a couple of people who are really good as well. So it's nice to partner with people to be able to build it up. I know one of the things I do is keynote speeches, and it's one of my specialties. And so I partnered with a marketing firm. I said, you need to go out and sell what marketing is, because most people don't know really what marketing is. So here, I'm going to barter with you. I'll do this keynote, and then you can do this for me. And came up with a really good marketing plan. And so I'm quickly becoming an expert, kind of. One of my goals, one of my philosophies, and this was taught by a mentor of mine a while ago, is if you start off with at least a functional knowledge of what you're doing, you should do every part of your company for a little bit. So with marketing, I should learn how to post on social. I may be terrible at it, but I should learn how to do it and actually go through the process of doing it and then hire out. And it gives you that general idea of what you're doing. There's experts out there. You're not going to kind of jump past 15 years worth of experience or 20 years worth of experience, in marketing. You're not going to do that in a couple of weeks or a few months or even a year. But it's at least enough that you understand what the concepts are, so you can adequately communicate with the people on your team. And so that's one thing that I've been trying to do, is getting better at social and getting better at just marketing in general. It was something that I never thought of. I think this might be a problem of a lot of entrepreneurs, where they think, I'm just going to put, myself out there and people are going to flock to me and start buying stuff, and not realizing that it's more like dating. So you kind of have to go back and forth and kind of get to know each other a little bit. And, that's it's better than here's my sign, come and buy something. There's a little bit of a difference there. So that's one thing I'm learning.
Yeah, I mean, with me, it was referrals as well, and then I did some marketing on my own, and then things got out of control. I was like, I have to stop the marketing. It's just too much. I can't handle it, and I don't want to be a huge agency. That's not my dream. I like working with a few clients that I love, that I consult with, run their ads, all that good stuff, because I don't consider them clients. They're like partners of mine. Like, yes, we're running your ads, but we're also doing your copywriting. And I go into your store. I'm like, we need to change this, and that, as if we were a partner, and they listen, based on all the data. And then, but I cut it off at some point. I only take so many at a time, and that's it. Just because that's not my dream. I like doing a little bit of everything. Like, I know some of the guys who own, multi-million-dollar agencies when it comes to running traffic. And it's just like, I have no desire whatsoever. I like the fact that I have time to run both of my brands that I have, which is a lot of work on its own. I love the fact that I can do my YouTube videos, my podcast, and still do the consulting and running traffic for the clients that I love working with, the partners that I have. So, but if the dream is to, scale as hard as you can with as many clients as you can, you got to do some marketing, man. You got to pour the gasoline on top of the fire. That's what I do with the e-com brands. It's like, all right, we got some organic content. Let's just fuel the fire, with some ads.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very true. And I'm learning that. And one thing about webinars, it's funny. It is amazing how much, even though we're experts in a field, it's amazing how much we don't see what we need to do. So really good example, webinars. I have clients do webinars all the time. This is not unusual, but I never thought about doing one myself until a mentor of mine once said, so when are you doing yours? Like, I've never thought, just not anything I really thought of. I did my first one back just after COVID hit. And I teamed up with a company here in Buffalo. Now, I have a completely virtual team. So the team behind me is completely virtual and across the world. Yeah.
Same here.
And so is hers. And I'm operating like in Sydney and Bali and other areas, so there's a huge time zone difference too. So I'm just used to this. I've been doing it for years. I did it in the corporate world. Most of my coworkers were elsewhere. Yeah. And so it was just the perfect situation for us to be able to say, look, you're transitioning online here. Let me help you with that. In 1 week, I think we had 68 registrations and 32 showed up. And it was, from what I've heard.
32 showed up. That's pretty good, man. For a webinar?
32 showed up.
That's pretty good. That's
we
what,
like almost 50%. And that was one.
It's or
50% in 1 week of advertising. Yeah, one week of advertising. And that's it. Because everyone was just really hungry for this.
Dude, I need your copywriters.
So, yeah. I know, right? Right?
Yeah.
It was just LinkedIn ads. I mean, it was nothing. Now that I look at it, now learning what I have about marketing, I'm learning that it wasn't really anything special that we did. There was just a massive need for it. And so, I have a webinar coming up. I just started advertising it on Friday. I still have people coming in, but it's interesting that, that I had never thought about that. So and it seems to be a really good way to market. So we're doing, it works for clients. So why not do it for myself? Right.
That's pretty awesome. So when you're doing the webinars, for example, are you following the classic, hero's journey, where you go through the whole steps of like, here's the pain, I found the solution for the pain, and the epiphany came, and blah, blah, blah. You do the whole structure, or you do it in a completely different way?
It depends. It depends on the client itself. Sometimes we're doing it as an education. And that's really the webinars that I stick in, is educating the customer about the product. And so it's a little bit different. We do kind of have some of the hero's journey part in it, but it's a little bit heavier on the, here's the problem, but here's the solution part is a little heavier on it. So that's usually what I'm used to.
Yeah, I think in the past, I want to say few years, like there's so many webinars out there and so many quote unquote free trainings out there that people have, normal people have caught on to it, where you have to tweak it a little bit to make it, I'm not saying it was never real, but you have to make it where you give out tons of value to get people to stay and convert at the end of the webinar, which, nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all got to evolve, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it completely depends upon the audience too, and what your goal is. So if it's simply in advertising, then yes, I want to go through and say, this is my problem, this is my solution, come here to learn more, so that's one side of it. But the other side is I had a mentor say this, and I just really love the term, where it's, give away your best stuff for free. And then people.
That's the best advice I've ever gotten. That's why I started this YouTube channel. I was like, I'm going to give it all away for free. And dude, As soon as I started doing that, it's just like, I got calls from companies. Never in a million years I thought I would get their attention. They're like, we'd like to work with, like, yeah. Where do I, it's like, yes, like, let's do it. It's crazy because this is what's funny. And for those of you guys who are watching this, like, my OGs, I like to call them my OGs. It's like, you guys are watching every single video that comes up, but I can tell you right now, because I watch the analytics on the back end, and I can tell you 95% of people don't watch every single video. And I can bet you $1 million that I can grab this whole YouTube channel, package it in a nice members area with a badass webinar, and I can sell it for at least $5,000. And then you'll watch every single video. Because even though you give it all away for free, people don't value anything for free. But guess what?
Yes.
If they pull that credit card and it hurts them in their pocket, most of them, not all of them, but most of them will watch every single video. Isn't that crazy?
I knew somebody years ago who was doing big kind of events. I work a lot in the real estate events. It's just because one of my main clients is in real estate and money. And it's something when I first started as a trainer, I started with a major mortgage bank. So, it's sort of my gig. But it's funny. He had this big event he was putting on. There were 200 people that were going to be there. He ended up selling 150 tickets and had 50 left over. And I think it was about 3 or 4 days before the event, he decided to reach out to the real estate investor associations in the area and say, I will give you free tickets, and gave a certain number of free tickets to each one. These tickets were $1,000 to $2,000 a piece. So it was definitely higher value, higher ticket item. I think maybe 50% of them even showed up. And of that 50%, half of them didn't even stay for the second day, and absolutely no one did anything with the information that was being given. While everyone who was paying $1,000 to $2,000 to be there all got a huge amount. There's a value we put to things. And we do it to training. We do it, to a lot of, we do it to a lot of things in our lives of how much we value something. And I think that's a huge, it's something I see all the time in training courses. I can give stuff away for free, and I do it as a service, but that there's definitely, people tend to take a lot more action if they put some skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I do it too. I know I looked at it before. I'm like, I have access to this thing for free and I haven't used it once. You know what I mean? That's the other perks of when you become, first of all, I don't consider myself a guru. I hate that term. I don't like being called a guru. Like, I hate that term. And then I don't call myself an influencer because I don't see myself that way. But I do get the occasional emails like, hey, we came up with this software. We really want you to try it out, because they want me, of course, to do a review on it and put it on the channel. And I look at it, and it's like, some of them are amazing tools, but I use them once and then, I never touch it again, or I use it a couple of times. There's some that I've gotten that way, and I use, and those are the videos that you see in the channel. Those I use with my team all the time. But I gotten somewhere I got access to, and it's like, yeah, I'll try it out. And it's like, I don't know, man. Maybe if I paid for it, I will use it more, but I forget it's there. Maybe it's just because it's not good enough. And those are the ones that I don't do a video on. Like, if it sits there and I don't touch it more than a couple of times, then I'm not going to do a video on it. Because the stuff that I put on, it's like, I want the quality behind it, that if I'm going to tell you, hey, this is what it is because I use it and it's going to help you, But yeah, don't give away everything for free. So we got a little sidetracked there, but let's talk about creating a course. I've done a couple of mini courses, and I dreaded the whole process because I knew that I had to sit down and record, I don't know how many videos. And the way I did it, nobody taught me how to do it. So I was like, all right, this is what I need to talk about. This is what I need to teach. And then I was like, okay, I'll do a video about this, and that. And then I put it all together into a members area. Is there a structure, like a movie, like a storyboard, like the pros use when they're creating a course? Like, do you do your storyboard? Like, okay, I got to create this modules and I got to break it down this way. Like, what's the right, like, if somebody's coming up to you, like if somebody's watching this and they want to create their first course, what is the course of action that you would walk them through from research to execution, as far as like how to put it together?
Okay. For as far as my company, if I engage a new client, what I do is start with a road mapping session. And what that does is it lays out the course. One of the major issues I see with a lot of experts is they're really good at what they do, but they're so good at it that they forget that mere mortals can't understand it.
The dumb stuff I call, like, I do the same thing too. I get questions in the channel. I'm like, sorry, I assumed you guys, just because I assume that they know it, because, the people that I talk to all day who are in my, I don't want to say my league or my level, but the people, my colleagues that are in the same type of like expertise as I am, we talk about it like it's nothing. And then when I create a video, I skip it, or like I don't touch on it, because to me or to us, it's like something normal. And then you're right. It's little things like that then you have to redo a whole video because you didn't touch up on it, right?
Yeah, and the term I heard put best is you can't see the label from inside the jar. So you can't really see these points that people are going to have a lot of difficulty with. And it's been so long since you've been through that process of learning these things that you also don't really remember the struggle that you had to get these specific, whatever topic it is. So that's one thing that working with us can really help, is to get to have another set of eyes on it going, that doesn't make sense, or we jumped a step here, or there's something missing. So that's part of it. The other thing is so once the road mapping session is done, then you have a finished, at least an outline that makes sense for your course. What we do, and this is something that sets us apart, is I also have a business plan in there. What the business plan brings in is, here's pricing models, because again, as we said earlier, yes, give your best stuff away for free, but some of the stuff we do have to have, we do have to have paid so that people will value it. Yeah. And so that's part of this. So what's your break-even point? How much are you going to cost? I mean, how much is it going to cost? What are my metrics? What do I want to hit as far as goals are concerned? That's something that really we differentiate ourselves with, is being able to add that in too. And so I like to kind of get a holistic view of exactly what this training is going to look like. We also do recommendations on things like learner management systems, which is there's so many out there. And each one is different, and each one's for a different purpose. So that's another thing that we consult on as well. And then we start into the storyboarding and go beyond there and actually create the videos. But that's, there are a lot of different, you can learn just about anything on YouTube. It's such a source. Right. So you could probably DIY it yourself. And that's why I'm doing a webinar and creating an online course. It doesn't matter to me that somebody wants to go out and do it themselves. To be honest, I will cheer them on. It's great, good. Go do this. If this is something that you want to tackle, there's a great amount of satisfaction in doing something yourself. But sometimes people just want to say, like you were saying, where it's like, I just don't want to, I would rather have somebody else walk me through the process. And so that's the way that we start, is with a road mapping session, and that will start you off. And if you want to do it yourself from that point forward, great. But it also can go into starting a relationship with us as well.
Now, when you're doing like the modules, Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
So that's right. No, that's all right. So as far as the modules, this is another thing that kind of working with somebody who's done this for a while can help. Is part of what I do is learning. I've learned how the brain works and how the brain kind of operates and how it retains information. And that's one of the side effects to having your mother as a neuropsychologist, is learning how your brain works. And I grew up with this. I remember when she was in grad school. So we were always the guinea pigs, my brother and I, whenever she learned something new. And we used to drive school psychologists crazy because we'd already been through a lot of the testing as part of it.
That's hilarious.
It was we had an interesting relationship with our school psychologists. And so that's one of the techniques I'll use. And priming is pretty easy. I saw this first done a number of years ago by a professor who was doing a lecture at an event that I was at. He said, okay, I want you to name as many words as you possibly can related to switch. Just name as many as you can. And so there was a room of us, maybe like 20 people. We came up with, I think it was about 30 words. And then, so he had this big flip chart, removed the flip chart, said, okay, how many can you remember? And I think the best of us got to 9. I mean, it was not very much.
Wow.
And so what he did next is he said, okay, give me a color. It was red, or a car, Ford, this. I went down a list of 15 items, then hid the chart and said, okay, what was the car? And we all could recall it. What was this? We all could recall it. Even at the end of an 8-hour seminar, we still could randomly recall every single one of those 15 items. And what he did when he said, give me a color, red. That's called priming. And it's the good old adage of tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. There's a brain science behind how that works. And so whenever we get ready to teach a course, I want to tell people first, this is what you're going to learn. Now move forward from there. It's little tweaks like that that I love learning about, and I like really adding into training to make it a lot more engaging, but also to really give a measurable output on the other side of that training. Training's good, but we want to make sure people are actually transferring that knowledge effectively, and that's something that that us as educational engineers do.
Is there like a certain length that you like to keep the training modules at? Because I've done courses where the training module, there's people that get exact to the point, and it's like this, and that. And I'm that type of person when it comes to learning. I'm like, just cut the bullshit. Just tell me, do this step, and just get it done. And then I've been through these other courses. Perfect example. I'm not going to say the name, but he's very, very successful, super smart dude. I learned tons of him back in the day, but every module of his is like 3.5 hours long. And it's about the philosophy and the world and all this science and all this shit. I'm like, dude, I went to college. I don't need to relearn all that. Let's just get to the point. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And
yes,
I mean, I got through them because I made a point to get through every single one, but it was painful, man. But I learned a lot, but it was just like, I'm an educated guy. I don't need, I don't need to learn chemistry and philosophy and biology and all that crap when it comes to marketing already. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, comes out as like, let me show you how smart I am, instead of just getting to the point where you can make it a 10-minute video. And I've seen that question before where it's like, how long should my modules be, or how many modules should I have? I'd rather pay you 10 grand for 1 to 5 videos that tell me exactly the answer that I am looking for to get it done than paying the 10 grand and sit through 33-hour videos that can be said in one video. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot be the only one that's like that, right?
Yeah. You're true. It's very true. It's always a balance, and it depends on the topic. There's some topics that people have everyone, when they come into training, has a preconceived notion of how the world works. And part of what we do as educational engineers is to overcome that. So everyone has their way that they think, and everyone's different. And so we're trying to come up with a common denominator. Sometimes some things need to have some background. So if we're going into finance, if I'm teaching somebody, some advanced financing topic, I need to make sure that they're coming in with the same level. So then there's going to be a little bit more theory versus action. If it's something like a sales training course, that's going to be much more direct because it's more action oriented. So it just depends on what we're teaching. And so it's always a balancing act to keep that balance between not giving too much information. I think there's this need for people to just dump everything in their brain, just totally brain dump everything to another person. The main goal of it is to say, I want you to be as educated with this as I am, whereas most of the time I just want to get enough information so that I have a functional knowledge. I know when I first started off, I said that I like to have a limited functional knowledge of everything I'm doing, and then I hire somebody else who's much better at it, but at least I know what I'm doing. Sometimes you just need that limited functional knowledge. I don't need to know the theory behind it. So it's always a balancing act to get that right. Yeah. And so for me, like ideal amounts, usually most of my modules are about an hour long, and they're made up of a series of videos, and the videos are average 5 to 6 minutes, maximum 14. That's the most amount of time you can hold somebody's attention.
Totally
they're short little snippets.
I listen to audiobooks in the car all the time. And, when I go on like a long drive, let's say like 30 minutes to an hour, I'm listening to the audiobook and I'm paying attention while I'm driving. And I don't know if it's because I'm in social media all day and the phones and all that stuff, but there's sometimes I catch myself after 15 minutes I just said 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. And it's like, I'm like, I have no idea what I just listened to for the past 5 minutes. And I have to rewind the audiobook and start it from like the last thing that I picked up. It's crazy how that works, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So studies show it's about 14 minutes. That's the maximum you can hold somebody's attention, and then they're gone. Yep. And so with 1 hour videos and really long videos, and I mean, I started off like this, so I can't really, say anything negative about anyone who's making longer videos, but before I learned this, but once you're in that point where it starts to get larger and larger, you've lost people after 14 minutes. And so if you break them down into smaller chunks, especially like you were saying with people in social media today, we have this very short attention span. We're used to small little chunks of dense information. That's it. And so if you give that to people, it really allows them to thrive in a course. We get much better retention rates when we're doing that. It's also easier for busy people. If I want to learn something, I want to learn a little chunk here. Just give me a little chunk here, a little chunk here. You know, if I have 5 minutes in the day here, I'll watch another video. If I, have a couple, here's another little piece. It helps with, especially with a busy lifestyle, to be much more convenient. And if I need to go back, I don't have to rewind 30 minutes back in a video. I can just go back to that little.
Yeah, that was my biggest deal with this guy's course. I mean, again, amazing course. I sat through the whole thing because I was like, I paid for it. I'm sitting through the whole thing. And I learned, I already knew a lot of it, but I learned new things. I mean, I learned new things from him, but it was just like, I would stop a video like, I don't know, let's say 48 minutes, and then I will have to come back later, and then I wouldn't remember where it was at because there was no way for me to pinpoint. You know what I mean? Like, you get busy throughout the day. I'm like, I can't remember where I stopped. And then you're like, this 3-hour video, you're going back and forth to try to remember where you left off. So I'll be curious to see. I would love to see the stats of like how many people actually sit through the whole freaking thing, or what's the average video length, but whatever. Anyway, so, all right. So if you're starting out, what's the best, not a company that's hiring you, but if it's just an individual who's, let's say Susie, who knows how to make, I don't know, sewing. She sews pillows or something, like, and she wants to make a course out of it. How should she go around it? What is the basic way that she should go around it to structure the proper way and get it out there?
Very first thing, bullet point your main topics. And what you're looking for is, and walk through the process. If it's something that's you're doing, so let's say if it's, so-and-so is doing crafts, walk through the process. And as you're doing that, make a bullet point for every action step that you're taking. So also if you're doing things like money, what you'll do, just action step, bullet points, and break it down. Then explain it to another person who is not as knowledgeable as you are, and see where they start to get confused. Because again, what that does is it shows you those blind spots that you have as an expert in your field. And so it's really effective at it. So that's the first step, is we just bullet point. And why am I teaching this? So also the why behind it. So that's the first place to start off with.
That actually makes sense. What platform do you prefer to upload all the courses to? What's your preferred platform to use to, do the membership courses?
It depends from client to client, but I really like Teachable. Teachable also has a coaching package now that I really like. So if it's just a standard video course, I'll use Teachable. If it's something that's a little bit more in depth, so there's a lot of people say online learning. That's a very, very, very broad term. Online learning can be in person. It can be, self-paced. So that means that we just have videos that are pre-recorded. It can also be very interactive. And that's e-learning. That's traditional e-learning, where it's, click a button, do this here. It's very, very interactive. If it's e-learning, there's specific learner management systems that we need for it. And I usually will use LearnDash, which is a plugin for WordPress. If it's a larger client, I have larger LMSs that I use, which are mostly for large corporations. But so if it's something like that, I use LearnDash. But generally, I've been liking Teachable a lot, and I've used it with a number of clients very, very successfully.
And then what's your preferred way of getting the course out there? Do you like doing like, well, it depends on the client too, but if it was somebody starting out, like we just said, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snap, what do you think is the best platform to get it out there, at least with like organic reach if you're not running ads?
I've been having a lot of success. So I have a marketing person who helps me with a lot of this stuff. It is not my expertise, so I always pull somebody in on it. But I at least have a general idea to kind of get me in the right direction. We're having a lot of success with LinkedIn and Facebook, and also webinars. Just doing a webinar and what do you do? Get to know you. Again, there's a huge amount of information out there. I can find I can learn whatever I want from Udemy, from YouTube. The quality is going to be different, but it's not hard for me to go out and learn these things, or Google or whatever it is. So you're selling more your personality. You're selling, I'm not going to go out and learn how to do a course. I am going to, make a connection with Andrew, and Andrew just really connected with me, and I love the way he does things. And so I'm going to connect with his way to build a course. And so you're building up your personal brand that way. And that's the easiest way. So Facebook, LinkedIn, doing webinars, regularly engaging, things like that.
All right, that sounds amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, Facebook is good. Well, it depends, Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, depending on what it's at. But bang for your buck, definitely Facebook. Not right now because of the elections, but that's a whole story for another day. Well,
Yeah,
Andrew, thank you so much for coming on, man. We're out of time, but any corporation that needs a course, or anybody for that matter, that needs a course made or an online training made, go to Nickel City, learningsolutions.com. Check it out. Where else can they find you, Andrew?
They can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Insta. I've put them all should be links in the description as well. So that way they can reach out to me. You're also welcome to reach out to me at Andrew at nickelcitylearningsolutions.com by email. And and if you'd like, sign up for our webinar. It's November 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You just have to register on the link, I think in the description, and it'll take you to Zoom, register for the webinar, and come in and learn everything you ever wanted to know about creating a course.
Right on, man. Thank you so much for coming on. We definitely got to do this again. And then guys, all the links are in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. Andrew, thanks again, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.